Okay, so thank you everyone for joining today. There's probably going to be some people that are going to filter in a minute or two, but let's get started to make sure we have enough time. So today we're talking with Speakman, and they're going to be talking about commercial safety equipment. The main presenter is going to be Matthew Gavia. Did I say your last name correctly?
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Matthew has worked in the safety industry for the past 20 years. He's worked with project safety managers for companies such as Turner Construction, Air Liquid, Amarco, and Chevron. He's been with Speakman for the last 5 years. And is now the national and international sales manager. We also have Mark Glennon on today. Mark Glennon is the regional sales manager for Speakman for our territory, so he's on here also. I know we're not using this as a new platform anymore, but just so you guys know, there is a Q&A at the bottom. There's a chat feature, so if you want to ask a question, just go ahead. There's even a raise hand, so if you're feeling overly motivated, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask your question directly. So with that, I'm going to pass it off on to Matthew, and we can start from there. So let's go ahead, Matthew.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Yeah, like you said, we're from Speakman. We do everything from plumbing to emergency safety, but mostly known for our plumbing in this room with you guys. First, again, thanks for being here. What we're going to go over today is who is Speakman Safety, why do we need emergency showers and Eyewash, and understanding and knowing of the codes. That's always kind of something that at times trips people up, and we kind of will try and clarify it. And some of these codes aren't the clearest, and they leave a bit to interpretation. So if you have any questions, you can ask those later. Where are these products needed the most in facilities, in various facilities across the industrial world. Some of our solutions for customers' needs. We'll go over some of our product and where they fit in. Some areas where sometimes customers and end users themselves will overlook, and they can kind of get dinged from OSHA and certain clients folks. And then finally, we kind of want to go over, what full compliance looks like for a facility, for any company who's needing to do that. And then at the very end, we're going to have a quick 3-question quiz that you answer them all right. You get it all right, you'll be able to get a chance at winning a $25 Starbucks gift card. So a little history about Speakman. 1869, we were, the Speakman brothers started a shop. They were making custom plumbing parts. They were making their own custom, everything from faucets to wash bins in downtown Delaware. They grew that business, obviously, for the last 150 years. In 1919, this was the first emergency shower prototype was used. The DuPont family and the Speakman family intermarried. They were both very rich socialites in the Delaware Valley there. And at a Sunday dinner, cousins were speaking, and the DuPont family had an issue with one of their black powder plants. The black powder plant, they were having an issue with when workers would emerge from the plant, they would have black powder dust on them, and they would burst in flames sometimes. So they they came up with the idea of like, hey, we need one of these showers or one of these units that we can use to put right outside, that in case that happens or when that happens, they can get to a shower. So that was the first prototype. DuPont family and Speakman, they had other business interests, and they kind of developed the first line. So 1939, Speakman introduced the full line of emergency showers. That also went along with the development of some basic safety in the industrial world, things happening as well. So that's kind of the start of the emergency shower. Who we are now, we're part of the Marcone group. We merged with PPG Wolverine Brass about 4 or 5 years ago. We're part of the Marcone Group now, which is about an $8 billion capital company that does everything from repairs to plumbing repairs to industrial machinery and regular home appliances. So why do we need emergency eye wash and showers? The easy answer is to save eyeballs and to save lives. That's the main number one reason and why we do it. Now, there's other reasons beyond that, but that's the most humanitarian reason we do it. Also that, and there's laws that force people to do it. There's insurance and workman compensation things that go into play as well. So according to OSHA and the labor statistics, more than 1,000 eye injuries can happen in a workplace every day. The financial burden for those is huge, $300,000 on average. When you factor in lost time, medical expenses, workman comp pay, all of that stuff. So not only is it something where people naturally want to keep their employees safe and removed from serious eye injury, it is very expensive when it does happen. So understanding and knowing the code, this is kind of the basics of it, and we'll talk more what goes into it, but just to kind of give you a quick refresh. 10 seconds to safety. We'll hear that a lot in what we talk about today. The units have to have the proper flow rate for the showers and for the eye wash. Everything has to be single use activation, hands-free, so that when you have something in your eye, you can either rub your eye, throw more water in it, keep eyes open, all of those stuff. So hands-free needs to be key. Tepid water range, 60 to 100, 100 degrees. That's kind of one of the more overlooked aspects at times for the end users, but ultimately it is the end user's responsibility. Equipment tested weekly. That's the number one find. Notice people not testing weekly, either using everything from a little card to an Excel sheet. However you need to do it, needs to be tested weekly and documented. OSHA ever wants to come in, say you have a slip and fall, OSHA can ask for whatever they want once they're in there. They can ask for heat stress training records. They can ask for your eye wash records. Whatever it is, they can ask for it, and you have to kind of have it. And then signage, making sure everything's properly displayed. Every new Speakman unit comes with a sign, so you'll never have a reason not to have a new fresh sign up there when you're replacing a unit, and making sure it's up and displayed. So getting back to the NIOSH part of this and the whole Institute of Health, again, what you're really dealing with is with the amount of eye injuries that even happen, even with things like eye protection and PPEs. The case is because you're dealing with a lot of chemicals, it can cause serious damage. So of those eye washes, on average, about 26% of those cases are exposure and harmful in these substances in the environment. So it's something that's very serious and something that everybody really needs to look out for. And according to one of our latest, is back from 2018, but the number of serious eye injuries that happen and the average that the days that can miss, as you can see, chemical burns, you lose a lot of time. And that doesn't factor in the ones where permanent disability happens. So these are the ones that just are able to come back. So it takes a lot of downtime. You're losing, if this does happen, you're losing a well-trained person in most things, and now you have to go ahead and replace that person, replace that knowledge into that job. So as you can see, it's a lot of time missed for that type of injury. So again, we're talking about protecting the eyes. So everybody knows eye protection is key. 90% of it is going to be prevented by having the proper PPE. And this, again, primary protection. This is going to be key. Primary protection, again, properly fitted, making sure it's up to its own anti and being used properly is going to be the first step. Ours is secondary. Both are required by law. So secondary protection is going to be your Eyewash. And these are all driven by federal laws, plumbing codes. All of it is included in part of the system of making sure that these are recognized. So the laws and codes and standards, the primary driver is OSHA. And it's really as a recommendation for employers. It doesn't really get into the exactitudes of what it is. They're leaving that up to ANSI. So they're not all that specific, but of what it has to look like or necessarily has to function, but they have to be there. So wherever the exposure is, it needs to have it available. So the performance standards, that's going to take place with how we have to make the product, along with we make it to that standard. Then the customer themselves or the end user has to implement it. They have to put it into the proper areas. They have to do the testing. They have to make sure it's plumbed properly to the plumbing standards. All that falls with the responsibility of them. We're happy to help. We can show, we can direct, we can do surveys, we can do all those things with the customers and the end users. Ultimately, it's there. It's in once it's stated and it is installed and all that. And once they buy it, basically, it's up to them to maintain it, to make sure it's in the proper areas. So the standard itself for ANSI isn't the law, but it's the ultimate guide basically for where things go and how they're going to work. OSHA is the regulatory inspectors who often refer to that standard, and they always respond to that standard, I should say. And then as far as recommendations and making sure that they're in place and executed. Again, it's up, the significance, the emphasis again is going to be up to the end user for the implementation of the standard. Once they understand they need to understand all of the requirements. We'll assist in supporting them, understanding the end user compliance, even show them what full compliance looks like. But again, they are the ultimate responsible party to make sure that they're up and working in the proper areas. Again, equipment supplier, out of the box manufacturer, their sustainability, the material, everything that we go through a third party certification to ANSI, IAPMO, same with some of the plumbing parts. Once they get certified, then we're able to sell them. End user, again, hazard identification, we can help them. Equipment placement, same thing. Things you see highlighted there, we can really help when we do our surveys. We'll speak more about those later, but the Speakman does offer on-site surveys to help end users if they have any questions for what's already there or what may need to go there. Equipment placement is key, we can help. Water adequacy, meaning you have enough flow, temperature, using thermostatic mixing valves or hot water heaters in certain areas to get to that 60 to 100% or 100-degree water temperature, we can help. Testing, we can show how to do that and how to best maintain that reporting. And then maintenance, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So a little side note here: when a splash happens, what facial area is affected? Eyes, face, both. Well, of course, obviously, it's going to be both. You're hoping that they're wearing a PPE if they're in a job where working around the chemicals. So even with PPE, you can get a splash, which we can go around and circumvent and get in the eyes as well. So the answer is both. So a little quick product plug here for us. We have the Optimus line, which gives you full face coverage without having to move your face around, without having to search for a steady stream into the whole face. You get full face coverage, aerated, soft, bubbly water into the eyes to help move particulate and help move chemicals out of the eyes softly, and really have a comfortable way to best utilize that 15 minutes that you have to keep your face in there, so you don't have streaming water going into your eyeballs. You have that full face coverage, you stay there, you have your 15 minutes, and hopefully you can avoid serious injury. And just, again, this is what our competitors look like. They're all stream based. Gives you just a general pattern of a spray, more like a fountain. So it's not as full coverage. You kind of have to move your face around a little bit more. So that's why ours is better. So when is an emergency eye wash needed versus an emergency shower? So if you look at these chemical or these notes here, these symbols are anything that has this symbol on the SDS sheet, you have to have eye wash. Any of these chemicals that you have that you're going to, where an employee is using, transferring, or storing, you need to have eye wash within that 10 seconds of the area. So when you're going to need, an eye wash versus a shower, really it comes down to volume of chemical. And OSHA says, it depends. How they break it down is quite simple. Job hazard, take a look at the evaluation. Take a look at the area where it's being used. This is kind of the first step with any type of evaluation is, can I get rid of the hazard? Is this something I can get rid of altogether by moving it or eliminating it? The selection process of the emergency shower is going to be both based on the shower, on the chemical itself. It's super hazardous. Also, if it's going to be a volume of chemical, it's going to be an area where it's, you got 55-gallon drums or 5-gallon drums in the area at storage. There's a potential for a leak, potential for a spill. It becomes a slip and fall issue where, someone just slips into it. Now it's all over the side of their body. You need a shower to take care of that. In some job areas, it may be limited to just the eyes. It could be, a parts washer or assembly line or something like that, where then, okay, just an eye wash is probably going to be good enough protection for that area and that worker. Other situations that may risk full body, like I said, slip and fall. One of the big things that we did for a company up in the Northwest was a lumber company, and they had to switch all of their eye washes to combo units because their assembly lines are where they were moving the big logs. They use hydraulic hydraulic system. And the issue they had was they would get sprays and leaks. So if a hydraulic hose busts or gets compromised, it will spray everywhere and it can get people on there, and those or get on a wide group of areas. So that then you would need to have a shower available for them in order to take care of that. A combination unit, again, it can flush any part of the body or the whole body as a whole. Really it's the best solution. So we always kind of say, if it's if you can't really make up your mind, or if it's a 50-50, just go with combo unit. It's kind of the best thing out there, just to cover the whole body. So where are these units going to be used? In factories and plants and wherever. Again, we're going to put it 10 seconds to safety wherever we have those universal symbols on the SDS sheets of the chemicals that we're using, storing, or transferring around employees. You need to have 10 seconds to safety. So again, the ANSI standard, 10 seconds to safety. Has to be accessible. You can't have blockages. You can't have doorways. You can't have a bunch of machinery in the way. So when we talk about 10 seconds, we need to kind of walk it. When we do the surveys, we walk it at a pace where a distressed person who can't really see can get to it. The equipment should be located on the same level. So that means it can't be 3 steps up, 2 steps up. It can't be through a doorway. Even if the door is open and they say, hey, we never closed the door, it doesn't matter. It can't be through the doorway. And really, it is a race against time. So unlike things like an abrasion, or if you get something in there, with that kind of thing, it's going to be instant. A chemical burn, some of it might not even feel that bad when it first happens, but as it goes, you start feeling irritation. They start rubbing it. It really becomes a hazard. And that really needs to get removed from the eye as fast as possible. So that's why the 10-second rule is in there. So for engineers, the placement of it, when you're doing the CAD drawings, it's a little bit difficult depending on how, everything's looking, talking about walking through space and everything. So they have a general idea, and they use about 55 feet straight line, but you can kind of work that if it's going around an area. You have to have a line of sight to it too. So if it has, like shelving that goes to the roof or whatever, then you have to take that into consideration too, and let them understand the signage part of that. But for the most part, when they're mapping it out, you go with 55 feet roughly. And so one of the things and the key things in certain parts of the country, especially in Northern California where it does get cold, certain parts of the year, the tepid water thing. So as the ANSI standard, delivering flushing or the fluid needs to be tepid. So between 60 and 100 degrees. Most groundwater in California is above that range most of the year, but Northern California, especially in the mountains, it usually ranges around 50 or lower at times. So that's going to be key. We use small heaters, water heaters, along with thermostatic mixing valves to kind of boost that up. So what happens if it's too cold? It's pretty straightforward. No one's going to stand in 52-degree water. I don't know if people stand in 62-degree water for 15 minutes showering their eyes and body. It's just not comfortable. It just makes it difficult for them to get the help they need when it's too cold and they need to flush their body in the open. Signage, as I was mentioning before, this is kind of the universal symbol and sign. We have some pamphlets that we're reprinting, and Mark will actually be able to get some out to the Osborne guys. And this kind of goes with a lot of the stuff we talked about, but it's kind of a quick and easy, a little pamphlet to kind of help you learn a little bit more about the codes and the product and everything that we've talked about today. So water that is too hot, and that's the same, that's the other side of it. So, and I grew up in Sacramento, and I know how the summers are. It's, you have days of 90 and 100 pretty regularly, especially if it's an outdoor unit, and, your unit is in the sun. That first, 20 to 40 seconds of water in that system, it could be 120, 130 degrees, and that's going to scald and hurt people. So, that's kind of why we need to kind of take that in consideration too. We have scald protection valves for those units where it drips the water in the chambers into the pipes so that it doesn't get over. I think it kicks on at about 90 degrees, 95 degrees, so that it doesn't get much hotter than that. In that area, for that when it does discharge, it doesn't scald anyone. Testing. This is going to be the biggest issue for a lot of end users in a lot of locations. A lot of folks don't have the manpower. A lot of folks now are going to outsourcing this. So it's kind of a new business that we're seeing out there, where a first aid company may say, okay, we'll test, you guys have 6 Eyewash units in here, we'll test them and document it since we're here every week anyway. And it's kind of an added value and something they can charge for. So, but it is also the thing where if OSHA comes onto your site and, they really don't like this facility or don't like the safety manager or whatever, they'll go to this, and this is like the easiest thing that they can ding someone for is their testing and their records. Because I will tell you, when we go out and do these Eyewash surveys on site, we probably, I would say 6 out of 10 do the regular testing, and that's it. So you can see about 40% of these, I would say on average, aren't doing it regularly, weekly. So again, remind the end users and the customers that needs to be done. It needs to be a process. Plumb eyewash showers need to be tested weekly. Verified equipment operation, meaning you need to document it, put it either on the card, a little, yearly card comes with each unit, but you need to replace those, or you're doing electronically. They have systems where they do barcodes now. But however you want to do it, it needs to be done. When you do use operate it weekly, it keeps the mechanisms and everything working. It keeps the supply lines clear of sediment, reduces stagnant water, all that fun stuff. It gets rid of. It actually makes units last longer too. So when we have, we've done studies over the years that when folks do this weekly, these units will last them anywhere from 15 to 20 years. The ones that don't, they'll last maybe 7 to 10. So if they're coming in and they're doing a big, revamp where it costs them $100,000, just let them know, look, you got to take care of them, do it weekly, because you want to do this in 7 years, or do you want to do it in 15 to 20? So plumbing codes, this comes down to, again, with ANSI standard, they need to be plumbed properly. They need to have proper water coming to it. Again, this is all the responsibility of the end user, of the customer. This is something we remind them of, so that when they're being installed, a lot of times they'll just have their facility guys like, okay, I'll just pop this one on here. I'll divert it off of this, and okay, we've got it. It needs to be done properly. It needs to be done to the plumbing codes. So hazards versus risks, and how do we identify them? Again, when we do a survey, we can help customers do this, but it's pretty straight. Is just identify the chemicals being used in the areas. Again, wherever those chemicals with those universal signs, wherever they're being stored, transferred, or used, you need to have eyewash available. And again, we can help with that. Do they require emergency shower eyewash? That's what we'll do. So if they have those chemicals in there, then yes, they do. If they're using them, transferring them, storing them, yes. Can the need of the PPE be engineered out? Yes. That's, like I said, one of the early on things, that if it's something that can just be done with, or we don't have to use this solvent-based thing, we can use this water-based that doesn't have any of these bad chemicals on it, do that. Or, can we eliminate it from here and put it right next to this, working unit over here, so you don't have to install a new one? All that kind of stuff, when we're doing the surveys, we can help folks out with. How many would be affected? So if you have an area where, there is a slip and fall, say it's a transfer zone, and there's, 8 guys working in it on the trailer area. So if there's a spill and you have the potential for multiple people, then you have to go ahead and think about, okay, maybe I need more than just 1 or 2. Your worst case scenario is that you need to think, if multiple people get affected by this spill or this contamination, how many units do I need to have within this area? And that's kind of, again, depends on the chemical, depends on the area, and all of that, and the people who work in that area for a simultaneous exposure. So the hierarchy of controls, when we're talking about this hazard and risk, is, the top is elimination or substitution. Can we do something else, do it different, put it in a different area? Engineering controls requires change to the workspace, again, using different product, using a different system, however that works. Administration controls, requires the worker, employers to do something different. So maybe they outsource it. Maybe they have, a second shift. And then the PPEs. So if they're going to do it and they need to do it there on site, they need this process to streamline the business and be profitable, then the worker requires to wear something. They need to have the PPE, and they need to have the eyewash safety near them. So again, it's about the symbols. Wherever these symbols are, eyewash needs to be in the conversation. Wherever these are stored, people and especially in the safety world, when we're talking with distributors, they sell, flammable closets. They sell, PPE gloves for corrosive stuff, or for irritants, for all of the clothing and stuff for PPE. And it's just a natural thing that we always let them know. It's like, look, if they have this type of PPE, then they need to be talking about Eyewash with them on it. So the GHS symbols are pretty much universal now. Again, wherever they're working with this chemical, stored, transferred, or used, they need to have Eyewash available. So the SDS sheets, everything comes down to section 4 on this. So on the SDS sheet, in section 4, it's always going to say whether or not it needs to have the skin or the eyes flushed for 15 minutes. Things like WD-40, things like Simple Green, all need to have Eyewash available because it has that this requirement on the SDS sheet. So flushing the eyes, the body, it all is going to be indicated here on the SDS sheet in section 4. So common hazards and where some of our units are used. Hazardous material storage. Again, the chemical storage units, janitorial closets are huge, and probably the most bypassed areas that get OSHA violations in places like schools, hospitals, even hotels, and things like that. So that's always going to be key. Bulk storage, chemicals. So again, even stuff like chemical waste. People think, oh well, we're just leaving it there. They pick it up every 2 weeks. It's a hazardous chemical. It needs to have an Eyewash near it because that's where it's being stored. And if there's a spill and someone slips, or if there's when they're removing it and transferring out, if it spills and someone gets splashed, you need to have it. So even if you're not using it and you're just throwing it away, it's ready to be picked up, you still have to have Eyewash there. Again, PPE, wherever they're using this, you need to have Eyewash available because, again, going back to the main point, this is primary. This is the number one, way to prevent eye injury. Ours is secondary, but both are required by law. So that's the one we need to always let people know and reiterate when they're talking Eyewash. So this one's over the last 10 years has been a big thing because people are going more and more electric versus gas for their forklifts and maintenance vehicles. So if they have a battery room, you need to have an Eyewash in there. Or mostly it's a shower actually, because these, if they blow, if they leak, it's a slip and fall hazard because you'll have a big, a big bay of these where you have, 15, 20, 30 of these batteries. If there's an issue, you need to have it because it's sometimes going to be big, and these sometimes have a chain reaction when one blows. So if you just have, 1 or 2, you probably just need an Eyewash thing around it because it doesn't have a volume of chemical that's really going to be that big of an issue. But if you got a charging bay or a charging room, you definitely are going to need an Eyewash combo shower unit available for them. So we talked a lot about, where to find the units and all that, and where ours go in any type of facility. We'll talk now a little bit more about the solution and some of the ways that we can kind of fix these and ease the burden the customer has. So eye face washers, this is just the standard kind of, very basic units. You've seen them everywhere. They're going to be pedestal mount. They're going to be wall mount. We recommend having desk covers on them. Our Optimus unit have a great one-stop unit. Again, just push it, activates it, the whole thing, again, hands-free. These are the Optimus are very durable. Their price point is pretty much very close to the more basic units. We still sell those. They still have their place. People still love them. They're relying on them. They've had them for years, so they just like to replace them sometimes. But this is just a better mousetrap. Again, it's easier to use, and it's better for the end user when the emergency is happening. Drench showers. These are the pool rods, the ones in a lot of these, mostly you'll see in laboratories, hanging from the ceiling, delivering 20 gallons per minute. 20 gallons per minute. I don't know if you guys have ever seen one of these in action. It's quite a bit of water. So when a lot of engineers are doing labs now, they have a drain there. They make sure we put these somewhat near, if it's possible, near the drain, because it's a lot of water. For 20 gallons a minute for 15 minutes is going to make a mess. But again, it's necessary. It's the law. It has to happen. It's going to save someone.
Hey, Matt, just because you brought that up, this will be a good point for this question. Someone asked, do you typically see direct drain for emergency eyewash or combos or not? 2019 CBC section 416.5 does not require a drain. Architect's concern is that someone will slip, so direct drain was needed. But then the issue is the direct drain would trigger the chemical waste section of the plumbing code. So
right.
do you
Yeah.
typically,
So what's happening now and kind of what we've seen is, every facility is different, and there are some, many facilities, depending on when they were built, they have their own water containment. They track the water. Like in California, it's really big for anything that's new, that's been built maybe in the last 20, 30 years. Water containment for wastewater that they can test before it goes out, so they don't get dinged. But a lot of folks don't, and there's that balance of the slip and fall, especially in areas where it was never designed maybe to have so there's not a lot of floor drains there. So there has been a rise in containment systems for showers. We work with a couple of different companies on them on occasion. So imagine just like a containment berm that has more like a gradual grade, so it's not a step where someone can enter in that area, and it contains the water for the most part. It's not going to contain it all. And then it has a hose attachment, so that when it does activate it, it holds or diverts that water. Again, that's a whole other investment. It's not, as you mentioned, it's not dictated by law, but you're right. It's a new world, and as far as trying to hold it all in, but a lot of states are different, a lot of areas are different, but it is something that each, again, company is going to have to address. But yeah, it pops up a lot now with that. So there's ways that we can get around it, and there are systems that can help contain the water, but yeah, it looks like there's more and more of that happening.
And since I interrupted you already, the only other question I got is, why do suppliers sell those eyewash bottles if they do not meet ANSI specs, i.e. 15 minutes of flushing time, hands-free, etc.?
Well, someone's jumping ahead of my schedule here, but
okay, if you got it somewhere in the slide, we're good.
That's coming. I'll save it till then.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I'll address that for sure. It is a big issue out in the world for sure. So one of the things that the engineers like about our Optimus solution is that our Optimus units, the combo units, are ADA compliant right out of the box. So some of the things that would happen would, a facility gets built and they have 12 combo units. But they don't notice that, or whoever comes in to do the building inspection comes in and says, oh, these two here need to be ADA because of whatever. Now, in the past, folks would have to say, oh, great, well, now I have to go buy an ADA version, which is usually 30% more, custom built, and I got to wait for it to come in. With the Optimus units, you simply swap the poles that it comes with, and you're now at ADA height. So that kind of takes care of it. And it's at the same price, and no fuss, no muss, a great solution for that issue. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why our Optimus units have become so popular over the last few years. Contamination stations, or combination units. Again, when these are being tested, here's a little side note. When they're being tested, they need to be operated and they need to be tested simultaneously. So you pull the rod, you hit the paddle all at the same time to make sure that the water flow is balanced. Our units come with one, but if the older units, or if there's not enough water coming in, or if it's not installed properly, you can have an imbalance. So, or not enough water supplying both of them once they're both on, if that makes sense. So that's why they need to be tested. It could be anything from debris in the line. If it doesn't, again, not installed properly. However, but these units are super durable. The Durajade finish for all of our units, the Optimus and the other ones that aren't stainless steel, are definitely an engineering call out that we see. It's probably the most durable finish out in the market. So it's definitely an advantage. So one of the new developments or things that are developing is the need for portable eyewash. Back in the day, the portable eyewash was really just kind of an add-on. Not every, whenever you didn't have water, you'd put one in an area and be good for it. So one of the things that happened a few years ago, Turner Construction, they got dinged for not supplying eyewash at the SoFi Stadium in LA. So what happened was one of their subs came on, got an irritant in his eye. They were trying to rush him around. They couldn't find an eyewash for him. He ended up with a pretty bad chemical abrasion in one of his eye, and it was a recordable injury. So they had to pay a fine. They had to pay for the injury. It was a bad situation all around. So they adopted a policy for that all of their subcontractors who have work trucks coming onto their sites must have a compliant eyewash unit on their truck if they're going to do work on their site. And that is if they have on their truck, if they have cutting fluid, if they have WD-40, if they have, enamel spray paints, whatever. If they're going to have it on there for the work that they're doing, they have to have their own eyewash on it. So that was new for that. It seems to be, we see more and more people. We've seen a few jobs with Swinnerton, Bechtel also ask for that. So that's something that not yet is, it's not a law, it's not a requirement, but construction has probably been one of the bigger sites for eyewash issues, and probably getting a lot of OSHA recognition. So this is these pictures here are from the Hudson Yards project in New York City that Turner was working on. On the floors they were putting in was this type of foam. I think it was some sort of anti-fire foam, but they were working on it and it was an eye irritant, and so they need to have portable eyewash units. So they didn't have water in this section. So they'd have portable eyewash units. It was probably 30 degrees with 20 below wind chill when I was there that day, super cold. So they were also having the issue of, I got these portable units, but if I fill them up, they're going to freeze in the afternoon. So we had to kind of figure out a way. They had power, so we had these portable units that have these electric jackets that keep the water warm, above 70 degrees, and so everybody would be in compliance. So it's out there. A lot of these companies are being more proactive with it, because I think they're starting to understand that it's an issue on a lot of these sites, and they're big money sites, and they don't want to make it even or lose money on them. So the portable eyewash units, again, this is the bare minimum. This is this 9-gallon unit at the top. That is the smallest unit you can use and be in compliance of the eyewash. A lot of folks, if they have them on the trucks, they're dumping them weekly and replacing the water. If it's going to be in an area, we have the microbial balancing fluid that you pour it in there, and it lasts for up to about 3 months. Fully contained, it gives you the full 15 minutes, and it's hands-free. Put it on the wall, put it at the wall mount, comes with a wall mount bracket. It's fully self-contained. It's really pretty easy to use. The unit below is the one that we used with Turner and a lot of the construction sites that are outside if they don't have plumbed water. These you can plug in, and this one doesn't have the jacket on it, but it has a jacket available where it basically wraps around. That front area just has a pouch that pulls down, and it opens and activates the Eyewash all at once. But it's plugged in, keeps the water, like I said, about 75 when it's really, really cold. It's not, if it's below, I think the maximum we tried it was 10 degrees. At about 10 degrees, in that 10 to 0 degree, it starts to not really work. So, it's difficult. But if it's just normal, somewhat very cold weather, it works fine. So I always say, people, look, if it's going to be below 0, it's not really going to work for you. So here's, someone asked about the squeeze bottles. So squeeze bottles are not compliant to the OSHA and ANSI standard. They're considered a personal wash. So if somebody gets particulate in their eye, it helps with that. It really is meant and provides some means to get an injured person to an eye wash or a shower in the event of a random emergency. So say they're out in the field and they don't have the eye wash, or it's not in the area, and it happens to them. And they need to be able to get the particulate out or get the chemical removed the best they can till they can get to some area. So it's basically just a little bit of a lifeline for emergencies in certain areas. But the reality is this, what we always tell people, especially if it's particulate, you're better off with a unit. And the reason is kind of simple. If you look at the other thing that's really good about these, it helps with cuts. So it can help clean out a wound or a cut too. So it's not only just for the eyes, it's kind of a thing that can help with abrasions and things like that. But if you look at the one up there, the green wall mount unit, you can kind of see how the guy is, push, or not really push, but he's pushing the water into his eye. And so when you have one of these units, and you're, basically you have to look up and then open your eye to try and get the particulate out of it. Many times what we've seen is if it's, a piece of metal or rock or dirt or something like that, many times if it's big enough or heavy enough, it can get lodged further back because you're pushing that water and that debris back into the eye. So it can kind of at times make the issue a little bit worse. But with our units, it's gravity fed. So you pull it down and you're holding your face over the unit. So that gravity of that water is actually, when it falls out, it has more of a likelihood to take the water out of the particulate out of your eye with the water that falls outward. So that just a thing where we say, you know what, if you want them, they're fine. They do have a purpose, not just for eyes, but really you want to make your eye wash availability as best you can, because it will work better for when it is an eye issue. Portable tank showers. So in areas where there are no water, there's no electricity, all that stuff, we have these self-contained units. We're revamping this unit. It's not quite going to look like this, but it gives you an idea. But it gives you an eye wash and a shower, trundle base, you can step on it and get to go, heater built in, all that fun stuff. Lab equipment, we went over that a little bit. The multiple installation styles, however it is, wherever it needs to go, it has the high finish so that it's antimicrobial, easy to use. You guys are all kind of familiar with that. Eyewash Safety Series. So this is our Eye Saver series. These are patented units. We have a dual waterway, single active. So whether even someone is using the unit as a faucet or not, they can still activate and use the Eyewash. So in a lot of labs, you'll see things like this where you have, not a lot of space for water, not a lot of water sources. This is something we did at Caltech. This was the before picture. So we only have, they're very limited. They didn't have a lot of space for any eyewash. So what we did is we basically reduced these, removed these goosenecks, put in these gooseneck units with the eyewash unit. So now they had water source and eyewash unit at every station. And it saved them quite a bit of time and money of trying to revamp the whole thing.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
So regarding the ANSI standard, this is Steve McConey, by the way.
Mhm.
Does this type of a wash have a different requirement than a typical wash? Because it was brought up, as you remember, engineer was asking about the flow. And it obviously is an ANSI approved product, but it doesn't put out the same amount of flow as your standard eye wash. So I don't know if this is somewhat of its own category.
On which one?
On the lab faucet one, I believe it puts out 0.3.
Right.
Versus 0.4.
So an eye face has so a regular, your basic standard one, I think, is you have your gravity is a 0.4, I think, or whatever, and then an eye wash has a certain level, and then the eye face has the next level. So he was talking about eye face being, but the eye face is a different amount because you're covering the whole face.
Okay.
So on this one, on the Eye Saver, again, aerated spray, so it's nice and soft for the eyes. Single action, hands-free, flip it up, it activates, regardless of whether the faucet's being used or not. Brass lead free, so you're able to drink from it. 3-year warranty, best on the market.
And sorry, Matt, great question about that one. It may actually show in that setup. He's specifically asking, how can this faucet mounted eye wash account for tepid water ranges with manual handles? And it looks like you're about to see the bypass in that picture.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it's basically 2 separate waterways. So you'll have for tepid water, just below, below the sink, you just hook from the have your plumber hook from the hot and the cold, put it through the thermostatic mixing valve, and then connect it through to where the green flow would be, and that where you'd have like your 85-degree water. So yeah, 2 separate waterways. Again, whether you guys probably seen those like iPod ones that are just screwed onto the end of a faucet or whatever. Problem with that is, number one, it takes more than one step in order to activate it. Someone activates it and accidentally turns on the hot water, and they're going to scald their face. So a lot of things make that not compliant. And when they do sell them, still they always tell them, hey, this isn't compliant, but they still tend to sell a few here and there. But so it takes the whole guesswork out of it. It's really a great function. It has different configurations. So if it has a widespread, if it's single post, whatever, it's ready to go. Again, separate designated waterways, various sinks that it can kind of go to. We talked a little about earlier about janitorial closets. The issue is that's where they store so much chemical in there. And the solution is that we can tap into their water source that they normally have in there, which is the janitorial sinks and basin, and attach one of our units. This is the SEF 9000 series. You can have it mounted on the wall. You can use it as a wand. If it's mounted on the wall, works as an eye wash, works as a drench hose. Single activation, you plunge the thing and it locks on and open, so your hands free. Again, it's has the easy ceramic cartridge. Most of all, it really is a pretty quick and easy way to kind of solve this issue. You can do it with tying into either the cold stop. This unit here is one that's specially made for it, that faucet itself, so it just ties into the bottom. But it comes in whatever configuration that you can go, that you would need. You can hook it up to a thermostatic mixing valve the same way by hooking below. Thermostatic mixing valves, again, blending the hot and the cold, delivering 85-degree water. you know, our units, this is actually our old unit. In the next slide, I'll show you our new ones, and we manufacture them ourselves. But it really just comes down to, you know, how many units they're going to have, the size of the unit, if it's a combo unit, if it's just a sink unit. That would make the decision on that. So these are the numbers, these are the new part numbers for them and the gallons per minute that they can handle. So freeze protected units. This blue one here is the one that Turner used on that job. It keeps it from freezing, keeps it maintained. The next unit over there is our 7000 series. This is fully insulated, heat traced. You can extend the heat trace line up to about 3 feet, depending on the installation. You know, the plumbed unit itself, it comes with availability for alarm, all kinds of different system add-ons you could want. The heat trace unit is great because it only uses the 120, so you don't have to fiddle with too much of the electrical end of it. So accessories and repairs, we have a full line of it. Like I said, Marcone Group really boosted our amount of repairs that we have, so we're pretty flush on that stuff now. You know, the signs, if a sign falls down, whenever we do surveys, you know, 9 times out of 10, there's a sign missing somewhere, and it's just quick and easy. You know, pop it up there, it averts any consequence if you have an inspection. The test kits, that test kit there, the thing that looks like a windsock and a bucket, you hold that up to the shower so as not to spray everywhere and have a messy time when they're trying to do their weekly evaluations. But alarms, all that stuff's ready to go. I mentioned our facility surveys. It's a value-added feature from us. You know, really it helps customers and end users understand what full compliance looks like. That's really what we're all about, and how we kind of go to market on that end of it is just educate the customer, let them know, you know, it's up to you. This is what we recommend. This is what OSHA and ANSI standard is. Whenever we do these facility surveys, we give them a printout. That printout looks like this. Basically what we do is we go through, we have them name the area so that it's familiar to them. We have a drop-down box that has a list of observations. We click that on. The recommendation refers to whatever the ANSI standard is. It shows what the ANSI recommendation is as per the code. The product recommendation that we make and the part number, picture of the part number, and then a picture of the area that it needs to go to. So when they do buy it and they do need to install it, they say, okay, this part goes here. On the end, we put any comment, any suggestion on how they need to apply it, if there's any special instructions on installation, if there's any additional parts that they need with it, it all we put there into the comments part. So with this, we would give them the whole report along with the distributor's quote. And, you know, that really helps in the sense of a project. So we go through, they say, hey, we need $20,000 worth of Eyewash. Along with this and that quote is a lot more effective to say, this is why we need $20,000 worth of Eyewash. And it just makes the sale process a lot easier, a lot more understandable and digestible for the controller. So when we're talking about full compliance, this is kind of what it comes down to. These 5 questions, this is what we look for. Within the hazardous area, are the employees 10 seconds of safety? Is the water tepid water? Are they showers inspected weekly? Once activated, are the showers hands-free and easy and fully operating? And then again, is there a sign and is it viewable for everyone? So that's kind of the long and the short of it, and that's kind of what we want to educate our customers on. You know, in summary, why Speakman? You know, our ADA conversions, our DuraJade, all of our bells and whistles are top notch.
But yeah, thank you all for being here. Glad to have you guys again, and be looking for another email for the next event we're going to host, you know, for the Lunch and Learn series. And if you guys have any questions about Speakman, you can always reach out to me directly. You guys should all have my direct contact at this point. So thank you guys, and enjoy your afternoons.
Thank you guys.
All right, thanks, guys.